Hello, I am Bishop Allyson Abrams. Welcome to the Bishop Allyson Abrams Show, where I believe truth empowers. Each week, I will bring topics to you that I believe you should be aware of. I will give you my professional opinion on the topics and probably some necessary suggestions too. We will talk politics. We will talk religion. We'll talk real estate and education. My life's training and education allows me to speak in these areas. I'm a trained pastor and bishop. I currently pastor Empowerment Liberation Cathedral, and I have almost 15 years of pastoral experience. I am a former politician, trained in politics at Michigan State University's Political Leadership Program. I'm a licensed realtor, holding licenses in Michigan and the District of Columbia. I also have an earned doctorate degree. I was a former school board trustee and served as school board president. I have some great topics to share with you on today, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Something interesting for you today. I was very happy to read earlier that Starbucks is partnering with USA Today to tackle the race issue here in the United States of America. Many people know that in the USA Today, we still have racial tensions that are very, very present and real on today. So what better place to deal with it or tackle it than going to a Starbucks for your wonderful morning cup of coffee. Here it talks about that 12,000 Starbucks all across the country will try to spark customer conversation on the topic of race by simply putting two words out. They're just putting race together. And I like the fact that they have people who will hashtag that. They're going to hashtag it on many of the social media websites, and as well as have that as a discussion point in the store. So when you go to the counter to get some coffee, there may be a sticker on the cup that says race together. And if you have a sticker on your cup, then that should spark some conversation. Or maybe when you take your cup out to your workplace, to your job, that may spark some conversation on what does it mean to race together. What is it that we're still struggling with when we talk about race relations here in the United States of America? And I was just excited to see that they would take on this challenge. And so Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, he's on a mission to encourage Starbucks and all of their customers as well as their employees to discuss race. And I think that we need to begin to discuss race in this country. We've seen with so many of the incidents across the last 2 years to 5 years that obviously there still needs to be some discussion about race occurring between all of the people who make up this great melting pot in the United States of America. And so he believes, the CEO believes it's a critical first step towards confronting as well as thus solving the racial issues in this nation. And I would like to see some of us begin to tackle the race issue here in the United States of America. I believe it's important for us to begin to have race relations conversations. Anybody else think it's important? I believe it's very important to begin to have this conversation for a couple of reasons. One, yes, the only way that we'll begin to understand one another is to begin to have the conversation. What does conversation mean? Conversation means that I bring myself to the table and say I'm willing to hear as well as give my own opinion. And so it takes two people to have a conversation. And so we've got to begin to sit down at those tables and we've got to begin to hear the other person as well as contribute to the conversation. What is it that you believe? What is it that you think? What are your personal biases? What are your personal prejudices? Whatever those are, bring those to the table. Let us sit down and begin to have the conversation. The only way we'll begin to appreciate one another is to have the conversation. There may be something about someone from another racial or ethnic background that you don't know, have never discovered, never ever heard. But if you sit down to the table with them and begin to have the conversation, then you'll discover something that may be something that resonates with you, and you may have something in common with them. So we can't appreciate another race's differences until we sit down to the table and at least have a conversation with them to find out what they are. So I believe it's time for us to begin to have those conversations. I believe also the only way for us to overcome the stereotypes, the biases, the prejudices are to sit down at the table and have the conversation. So I'm saying it's important to have the conversation. And I applaud the Starbucks CEO, Mr. Schultz, for having the initiative and the drive to start this with Starbucks. Now, yes, some may say, well, I'm a little uncomfortable because I'm simply going there to get some coffee. I'm not going there to talk about race. I'm not going there to talk about what divides us. I'm not going there to talk about my own prejudice. And so, yes, some people may be uncomfortable. And I think that if you don't want to have the conversation, if you don't want to address it, simply go and get your coffee and leave. But for those who would like to, those who may take a few minutes, take 5 minutes, take 2 minutes to have the conversation, I think it's very important. If we're going to progress as a nation, if we're going to move forward as a people together, we've got to begin to have the conversations. When I look at coffee over the years, coffee has been a tool for conversation. We sit around the table oftentimes and talk with our friends. We talk with our family members, talk with our coworkers around a cup of coffee. What better way to have a conversation than around a cup of coffee? So I would like to say I believe it's a non-threatening environment. It's a non-threatening tool. And I would say many negotiations have even occurred over a cup of coffee. Somebody out there watching has had a deal to be made over a cup of coffee. Oftentimes you have business people that will meet over a cup of coffee. And so the cup of coffee has been intricate in many things that have occurred in our country on today. So I just believe, once again, we need to have the conversation. And I believe also that it's important to bring your opinions, to bring your thoughts to the table, bring your biases, bring your prejudice. Let's see if we can diffuse those. Let's see if we can find a commonality. Let us see if we can find something that we all have in common, that we enjoy together. And let's see if we can resolve some of the racial tensions and some of the racial issues here in this wonderful country that we live in, the United States of America. So I would have to say to each of you, go have a cup of coffee and start talking about race. This is for those of you who fly often. There is a rising problem now with those who have to take flights on a regular basis, and it's called seat sprawling. Seat sprawling is something that the airlines have done that has reduced the size of the seats on the airlines. And so oftentimes many persons who were accustomed to having some space in their seats are now experiencing overcrowding and feeling as if there is no space in the seat that they have paid for. And so it's been noticed that many persons in the USA, as well as other people around the other parts of the world, have now experienced an increase in their weight. I think that's a nice way to say it. And so there was a poll done in 2014. A Gallup poll found that adult obesity is now to the rate of 27.7%. That is up from 27.1%. And so we are continuously increasing in the U.S. in our weights. And so as we increase in our weights, the strange thing is that the airlines are downsizing the seats. And so we're in essence getting larger and the seats are getting smaller. And so if you're listening to what I said, you can see the problem in that. And so many people are now beginning to complain because of the feeling of being overcrowded as you ride from one place to the next. And so it is a growing problem. And so how do we do that? what is happening is, first of all, the airlines want to make more money. And the way that they have found that they can make more money is by reducing the size of the seats and actually adding another row of seats. Okay, and so with that, you are now being inconvenienced because the airline wants to make more money as they fly you from one place to the next. And it's interesting because those of us who have to fly on a regular basis, your cost has not gone down any. However, the size of the seat has gone down, the services that they are providing for you has gone down, and really, in essence, things have really changed with airlines over the last probably 5 to 10 years. And so what can you do about it? I would say be proactive. If you're a frequent flyer, you can be proactive and say, hey, I fly with you all the time. I have this number of miles. I spend this amount of money with you. I would like for you to stop decreasing the size of the seats. You have to be proactive and let your voice be heard because you're the one who is helping this airline to stay in the air. And so if everyone begins to raise their voices, you would not have to experience this inconvenience while taking your flight. Also, with many Americans, we just begin to accept things and oftentimes won't speak out. But if you feel this is not a good thing for you, if you feel that you are now feeling as if you don't want to fly anymore because you are overcrowded, you have people in the aisle who continuously bump into you, you have a person that sits in the middle that seems to take up some of your seat, then you can begin to speak out and say something to that airline that you're paying your money to. Don't sit by in silence. Don't suffer in silence. Begin to let your voice be heard. Also, it's a known thing that some airlines are saying, hey, if you need more space, buy another ticket. Well, we know everybody in this economy cannot afford to pay for 2 tickets. So once again, we want to be proactive. We want to begin to speak out. We want to begin to let the airlines know that what you're doing is not working for us, and we need you to stop downsizing the seats as America puts on more weight. So I would say as the airlines continue to charge you more for your bags, as the airlines continue to now add on costs for fuel, as the airlines have now began to say that they're going to charge you for all these other different expenses, as well as they're not going to serve you dinner anymore, as well as they're not going to serve you breakfast, I would say let your voice be known, let your voice be heard, and don't sit by without saying something about what's happening with your flight that you have to continue to take. Here is another case of discrimination in the United States of America. Recently, there was a couple that wanted to have their wedding videoed by a local businessman, and this particular couple sent an email asking if this particular videographer had a problem videoing a same-sex marriage. And unfortunately, the businessman responded by saying, at this time, I do not record same-sex marriages. And so now, once again, here we are with discrimination being blatant and very present in the USA in 2015. So the couple then wrote to the Chamber of Commerce there that this business was a part of, and the Chamber of Commerce said it did not have anything in writing to stop the businesses that were affiliated with them from discriminating against any person. However, this story has received so much media attention. I read it on CNN, but it's received so much media attention that now the Chamber of Commerce is getting ready to put in place something in writing that says that none of its persons or businesses that are connected with it can discriminate against anyone based on their race, based on their religion, based on their creed, their color, the gender of expression, the sexual orientation, based on their age, ancestry, disability, marital status, or military status. So they're going to make sure that any person connected with this particular Chamber of Commerce in the Bexley area will not be able to discriminate against any customer. It is so terrible that this particular customer had to experience this from this business. Who wants to seek out the local businessmen to try to make sure they're giving back to the businesses in the community where they live to hear from them, I will not service you because you are marrying the person that you love, and I don't believe in you loving who you love. Who wants to hear that on today? The United States has progressed in many areas. We have now 38 states that have marriage equality. And so now we know that many businesses have asked to have what is called religious freedom to be able to discriminate. Religious freedom, in my opinion, gives companies, businesses, the right to openly discriminate against anybody. If we look back at our history, we know businesses many years ago discriminated against African Americans. They didn't have a problem making it clear that they were outright discriminating against a certain protected class of people. And so now here it is again, we see that this particular company is openly discriminating against, once again, a protected class of people. And so it's so sad to see that today, still in 2015, where we have persons who don't want to service couples. If you say you're providing a service and you're providing it to people in the public, then that means that you're providing it to everybody. And so I don't believe that businesses should be allowed to discriminate against servicing anyone, no matter what their race is, no matter what their religion is, no matter what their sexual orientation is, no matter what their gender expression is. If you have a legitimate business, if you say that you're servicing those in a community, I don't believe that you should be able to outright, openly discriminate against anyone. I believe your business needs to be shut down. Religious beliefs should be held in your own home. If you have a religious belief, then that is your personal belief. If you have a religious belief, that should be held within your family. If you have a religious belief, that should be held in your place of worship. That should not be allowed to affect those in the community that you have said that you have established business to service those in the community. There must be a separation of church and state. I believe that so many times we have people that cross those lines with church and state. There must be a separation of church and state. Persons should stop establishing businesses if you know that your religion will not allow you to service everyone. Therefore, if your religion would not allow you to service everyone, I also would suggest maybe if you just have to have a business, I would suggest maybe you establish your business inside the church facility, inside of the church edifice, and that way you won't have to service everyone. You can just service a certain group of people. I just believe heterosexism is a challenge in the world today. It is a way to discriminate, and it's often a way to voice your personal bias. And we have to understand that heterosexism is not the only way that people can discriminate. People have ageism. They discriminate against seniors. People discriminate against persons who are of other religions. And so we have lots of discrimination going on today. But we must try to work to resolve those issues. We must try to overcome those things that help us or that cause us to not love our sister, not love our brother, not treat them as fairly as they should be treated. And I just believe that it's time out for discriminating against persons who want to marry the person that they love. If the Supreme Court has passed that, struck down DOMA, then I just believe that it's time now for the states to come on board and begin to support that. I would say lastly that religious freedom should not be an excuse to that we stand behind in order to say, well, this is my religious freedom in order to discriminate against someone. Oftentimes that is a scapegoat, that is an excuse to not deal with someone who may be different, someone who may think differently, someone who may love differently, someone who may look differently. Many times those who discriminate against African Americans did it because they didn't understand the African American people. They didn't know certain things about how things worked in the African American community. So let us not stand behind religious freedom. Let us not stand behind excuses to discriminate against persons. Let us begin to work together to try to see how we can live in harmony with one another. Let us work together to see how we can use our religion to love one another, to love those who are in our community, and live in harmony with each other. Let us begin to show love to all of those persons. But once again, if you're a business owner, please do service everyone who needs to be serviced in our community today. Healthcare. Healthcare is something that we have talked about for many years here in the United States of America. The Affordable Health Care Act was one that was very difficult to get approved, but we finally got it approved, and it's now working for many Americans. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the uninsured rate is now 13.2%, which is down from 20.3% in 2012 and 2013. So many people are now taking advantage of what is lovingly called Obamacare. I want to say that I just believe that part of the reason so many people have been able to take advantage of this is because of the people who are in college, the young people. They're able to stay on their parents' health insurance plans until they're 26. And so that brought in a large group of people who were previously unable to stay on their parents' health care plan and had to thus go out and find their own, and maybe were just finding a job, could not afford to pay their health insurance. And so now we're able to cover those young adults who are now moving into the working world from college. And we're also able to get those African American and Latinos. Those numbers are up. Because of the Obamacare. Those numbers are up and many are now covered. I would just like to say that it's interesting that so many people objected to the Affordable Health Care Act and having that approved initially. They thought that people wouldn't sign up. They said that people would not want to take advantage of this. But the numbers have shown very differently. We have now the numbers fell by 16.5 million in the United States. And so obviously people are taking advantage of the Affordable Health Care Act today. Even employers, those numbers haven't fallen off. They're still allowing those who are employed with their companies, even small companies, to take advantage of this particular Health Care Act. So I'm glad to see that many of you have taken advantage of what is being offered here in our country. And thanks so much to President Obama for being the one who was able to get it done. Now, one of the things I want to say is I believe that there will be less money spent for emergency rooms, because now when you have health insurance, you can go to your primary care physician and you can see that doctor, and you don't have to rush to the emergency room. You can go into the doctor that you've established a relationship with, the doctor who already knows you, the doctor who has your entire health record, and you can then be seen by them and they can assist you. Also, I believe that many people should have less chronic problems because you're being seen on a regular basis. You don't have to say, well, I got to wait until it's really bad to go to the doctor. You can go to the doctor now because you're covered by your health care. And so I would say, please take advantage of the Affordable Health Care Act. It was done with you in mind. And please take advantage of that, and be sure to see your primary doctor. Healthier living. That's something that all of us talk about, but have we really decided that we're going to do that? Healthier living and eating a better diet is something I would like for each and every one of you to do. First, in order to begin to live healthier, you have to make a commitment. Have you made your commitment? When will you make your commitment? If you've made your commitment, have you received an accountability partner? Have you gotten an accountability partner? Have you named a partner to maybe make sure that you are staying true to your commitment to yourself and to a better you? After being committed, I would say you have to be consistent. Consistency is key. When you talk about eating a better diet, yes, there are things that call our names. Anybody had something to call your name in the midnight hour? Anybody ever had something to call your name in the morning and you just were drawn to the kitchen? You were drawn to the cupboard. Well, I would say you have to be consistent with the plan that you set up for you and your healthier living. You have to be consistent with eating a better diet each day. And you have to be able to resist that temptation. Yes, there's some resisting that must happen when you talk about a healthier living. And so I would say, get your accountability partner on the line. Let them know, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to begin living a healthier life. I'm ready to begin eating a better diet. Now, one thing that I want you all to know is you've got to be able to envision a new you. Seeing, I believe, is believing. So if you can't see a new you, if you can't see you eating a different diet, then it's not going to happen. So you've got to be able to envision a new you. You've got to be able to see a healthier you. You've got to be able to just imagine a more fit you. I believe if you can begin to see that, it will begin to become a reality for you. So I encourage you to start seeing yourself differently, to start seeing yourself 5 months down the line, see yourself a year down the line. And I believe that you'll begin to move into that better diet each and every day. I believe if you can see yourself changing, change will come in your life. And so now I encourage you once again, make that commitment to a healthier you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Bishop Allyson Abrams Show on today. We look forward to bringing you new, exciting topics that are sure to stir your soul. Tune in each week, and remember, truth empowers.
You see, church, I just believe that we would really look back over our lives and think things over.